Welcome, Falmouth, to FCTV's live election coverage. It is Tuesday, May 18th, Election Day here in Falmouth. And as always, my friend Jay Zavala and I are pleased to bring you live election results. We will have tonight some of the candidates for today's elective offices right here live on FCTV with you. We will review and talk about some of the races. There were some questions on the ballot today, and we will review those as we always do. We'll offer commentary as well on the issues of the day and of the races, how we think things are shaping up, and take a look broadly at the issues as they relate to the villages of Falmouth and how those impact the local elections. But first, I would like to take a moment before we get into live election coverage and just speak briefly about a sad event really in our community. Many of you probably know Virginia Valiela, or certainly are familiar with the name. Virginia was one of our longest serving members of the select board. She served for 21 years, and before that was an elected commissioner of public works, actually when the town had elected public works commissioners. And when Virginia was first elected to what was then called the Board of Selectmen, they were full-time executives. There was a board of three before we had a town administrator and changed the charter. That was back in 1991. Virginia was elected before that change and actually transitioned through to being a part-time selectman. Virginia sadly passed away last weekend after being ill for a while. And so I just wanted to take a moment this evening to pay tribute to someone who was a teacher, a mentor, and became a friend. We served together on the Board of Selectmen for more than a decade. And I thought this picture would be a nice one to provide a tribute to Virginia, because it's a picture, I believe the year was 2009, when the town dedicated the landscaping in front of Town Hall. It's called the Virginia Valiela Water Conservation Garden. And this photo was from back in 2009 when that garden was dedicated. And you can see at the time, most of the living people who had served on the Board of Selectmen came out to show support and solidarity for their friend. And I'll just briefly go through the list of people you see on this picture, some of whom are no longer with us. Some continue to serve the town in different capacities, but all of whom gave up their time to help lead this wonderful community. So seated down on the bench there, from left to right, you can see Mary Pat Flynn, who recently also served as a county commissioner and retired from that position. Next to her, Andy Dufresne, who served as a full-time selectman along with Virginia. And Andy is still very active in the community, recently gave up his town meeting seat, but at 90 years old is still very much with us. And you can see him this summer driving around in his convertible. Of course, appropriately seated in the center there was Virginia. Next to her, my old dear friend, another longtime serving member of the Board of Selectmen, Eddie Marks. And next to Eddie, George DeMello, who served on the Board of Selectmen and is also no longer with us. Standing up in the back there, very active in the community for many years and still active in many issues, including Veterans Affairs, that's Ahmed Mustafa, our former town manager, who's now the town administrator in Yarmouth, but lives in Falmouth, Bob Rittenauer. Next to him, Matt Patrick, who served on the Board of Selectmen and then served as a state representative. Kevin Murphy, who served on the Board of Selectmen for many years. Next to him, Carrie Murphy, no relation, but two fine gentlemen who gave of themselves for a long time in this community. Of course, Nate Ellis, who also passed away recently, and who was better than 90 years old and served this town in many capacities, a member of the Board of Selectmen, and also the Director of Public Works. Next to Nate is a little stouter version of me back in 2009. And then next to me is Brent Putnam, who also served honorably for many years. Catherine Bumpus, who served on the Board of Selectmen. And next to her, John Elliott, who served on the Board of Public Works and then the Board of Selectmen, and who also has passed. So Jay, I just wanted to start off this live election coverage with really honoring an amazing life of service Virginia gave of herself for decades in this community, and was an incredibly dedicated public servant. Really, much of the cleanup at the Massachusetts military reservation, now called Joint Base Cape Cod, happened because of her determination and her willingness to work closely with officials out at the base. Uh, Later on, after she retired from the select board, she of course was very active in wastewater issues in this community, and really the list of things on which she was impactful. We could spend an hour show just talking about that, but her legacy will outlive all of us, and it's really, as I mentioned today, a gaping hole in the soul of our community. Uh, but Falmouth was better for having known her and for her having served. So
Absolutely, Troy. I couldn't agree with you more. Uh, I moved here in 2000, and so I had the privilege of observing Virginia at work in a number of fields, and always had uh, something important to offer, a contribution at any level. She was just great. As you mentioned, all of those individuals that have served our community in the past, it's surprising that even in a 20-year span, I could identify most of them myself because of their level of involvement. Uh, yeah, they've all, and of course, seeing Mary Pat and knowing what a fine lady she is as well, it warms the heart. Absolutely. So we've been asked to come back to Falmouth Community Television to do another election day results. Uh, I I visited precinct 6, delivered pizzas to the volunteers over there, and didn't see very much activity at around 5 p.m. this evening. What did you make of the turnout so far?
I voted right off the bat before I headed off to work this morning at maybe 5 past 7. I think there were maybe one or two other voters. I vote precinct 6 as well. Co-located precincts 3 and 6 at the high school, and it was very light. We will, in a few minutes, have Town Clerk Mike Palmer on to talk about the turnout and, of course, give us some preliminary election results. And so we'll see in a few minutes what the turnout was. There were only a few contested races. Uh, Actually, I think one contested race because the others, the races were unopposed. But we do have joining us right now, Jay, one of the two candidates for one seat on the select board. So we're happy to welcome Angela Scott Price here live on FCTV to join us this evening and talk about her candidacy for the select board.
Excellent. Let's go there.
Angie, welcome to you. We're glad you're joining us here on FCTV. I know you got a lot going on with the campaign and some supporters that are waiting to chat with you and enjoy as the results come in. But thank you for taking a few minutes to join us tonight, and just tell us a little bit about the campaign and how it's gone and what issues were important to you and how you found it campaigning in a time of COVID.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Troy and Jay. It's great to be here. It's a good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. So the campaign was actually really fun. I met a lot of new people. I heard a lot of things about issues around the town that, I maybe knew a little bit about, but finally got a chance to hear how people really felt about the issues. And the main things that stuck out were things that were already important to me: affordable housing, which I will talk about affordable housing till I'm blue in the face. So that it was nice to see that other people find that as a concern that we really need to be paying attention to. And another major platform of my candidacy was the opioid epidemic and really addiction in general and managing that in our community. And I was pleasantly surprised with the number of people who thought that was worth working on. And so, if elected, I look forward to taking people up on their offers to work on that and to move forward.
Those are pretty fundamental issues. When you think of our community in strategic terms, if we don't have the housing necessary to keep people in our community, the very underpinnings is in jeopardy. And
Absolutely.
if we don't have the workforce healthy and ambitious and eager to engage in competition, again, we don't have the foundations. So I was struck by the area that you were drawn to in order to focus on in the direction that we should be going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
So-
thank you.
I had the opportunity to chat with Angie before I wrote a recent newspaper column on her candidacy. And one of the things we talked about, Jay, related to that was I travel off Cape every day to go to work in the city of Brockton. And every morning when I head over the bridge, excuse me, there's a line of traffic. There's a traffic jam coming on Cape Cod every morning, even in the winter. I don't see that as a traffic problem. I see that as an affordable housing problem because the people who work here, who are the backbone of our local economy, simply can't afford to live here. So I know, Audrey, you've served on the Affordable Housing Committee prior to becoming a candidate for Select Board. Talk to us briefly about some of the solutions that the committee is working on that you hope to bring to the Select Board.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been on the Affordable Housing Committee for a while now. And a few months ago, I started chairing a working group where we started looking at potential revenue sources for the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. The CPA, the Community Preservation Act, and the Community Preservation Committee do give a significant amount of money towards affordable housing every year, but we just have such a need that it's just not enough. And so I'm really proud of this document that we've put together. On Thursday, we hope the Affordable Housing Committee, the greater committee, will essentially give us the blessing on this draft for us to take this working document to the other committees, to the Finance Committee, to the Community Preservation Committee, to discuss these potential revenue sources, none of which raise anyone's taxes, just looking for different funds to support affordable housing. And if we have more money in affordable housing, there's more we can build. We might have the option to renovate older buildings. It just gives us more options of things that we can do to support more affordable housing.
And that is indeed an important issue, critical, and along with it, the issue of addiction that touches so many lives, as both of you know. That's something that has touched my life in many important ways, and I'm blessed and grateful to be someone in long-term recovery. So it's an issue that I think really deserves additional attention. Angie, we actually have Town Clerk Michael Palmer in the waiting room, and I thought what we might do is bring him on, but ask you to stay on if you'd like, and he can talk about turnout tonight, and just see if there are any early results. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful.
So Michael Palmer, our esteemed and a longtime veteran, perhaps some might say erstwhile town clerk. We're happy that you're joining us here live on FCTV. In addition to his duties as our town clerk, Michael also donates his time and gives of himself as a member of the board of FCTV. So he's really, truly dedicated to community media. And Michael, we thank you for all you do. So welcome tonight. And how did the election go today?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Very low turnout. I do have just results from precinct 1, and you may have more results than I do because I know there are people at each polling place collecting results. But precinct 1 in Troy, you can attest to what precinct 1 can do when you're running elections. They had a 26% turnout in just precinct 1 alone. The rest of the town, if we get 15 to 20%, we're going to be lucky. So obviously precinct 1 always comes out in force. And again, one of the first campaigns I can remember Troy running as the Board of Selectmen, we had all the other precincts came in except for 1, and he was pretty excited. And then 1 came in and he had talking to a fence post in his backyard after 1 came in. So sorry to bring up a hard facts story, but that was it. But anyway, the suspense, Angela pretty overwhelmingly carried precinct 1, 652 to 150. And those are some pretty tough numbers to overcome, given the low turnout throughout the rest of the town. So that's all I really have now, because I'm here at Town Hall and I'm able to go in the basement and get those. We have people going out to each of the precincts to pick up memory cards, and we'll download that. Those memory cards to get consolidated figures. It should be fairly quickly, depending on what issues arise at each one of the polling places. But precinct one kind of sometimes carries the town, so it's interesting to see those results and give you something to talk about, at least until we get some other results in. So,
And as we go in that direction, Michael, can you give us a sense of where we are on the 6 questions on the backside of the ballot?
yeah, again, just in precinct one, I will say that question 1 almost carried the same number as Angela did, 642 and 92. That's for the replacing the T-ticket roof. And that also has to come up next November and to be discussed at town meeting to appropriate the money. This is us off-writing the debt exclusion for that, but we have to appropriate the money at next November's town meeting for that. But,
Right.
because of how things fell this year, it kind of went on the ballot before we had the chance to talk at town meeting. Normally we'd talk at town meeting, then it would go on the ballot, but just how things worked out. And I'm just looking down real quickly, all the charter review questions, all pretty much overwhelmingly with the same margins of victory, 600 to 50 type of figures, passing all the charter review changes. So,
I had made the observation to Troy that the 5 charter review changes were primarily administrative in nature.
yeah, some of them look like they do, but the charter review committee worked tremendously hard on reviewing this charter and really broke it down, and they really had strong conviction on these changes being made. This is the second round for them. They did some changes last year, and these are some ones that were lingering over, and they worked to react a little bit more and brought these up this year. So I don't know if they would say they're necessarily just housekeeping things, but they certainly do clean up the charter in order to the charter match what actually practice in the town has been. And that's one of the things the charter review committee is good for. Sometimes what we're doing and what the charter says doesn't coincide, and they were able to kind of clean that up to make the charter better reflect what we're actually doing. So, and it's kind of a give and take both ways on that.
So let's chat just briefly. And Michael, thank you so much. So this is you've heard it here first, as we always do on election night here on FCTV, providing you live results as they roll off of those machines. And thank you so much, Michael, for giving us those results. So to pivot to you, Angie, and I'm guessing that those precinct 1 results were probably expected. Jay and I have talked a lot over the years about how precincts 1 and 5 tend to have high turnout. And Michael is right. I still vividly remember that night when we won every precinct in town, but lost precinct 1. But you have to be happy with those results right out of the gate.
Troy, I'm going to jump out. Congratulations on those results on July, and I'll get back to you a little bit later with some more results. So okay.
Thank you so much, Town Clerk
Michael.
Palmer. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Absolutely. I knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of voter turnout, unfortunately, but I do understand that, there's still the pandemic that people are wrestling with. And, one thing that I would really like to do if the results hold is to try to get out more in the community, get more people interested in voting and registered and actually voting in the next election. Like, I know local elections tend to be very low, but I just would like to see people more involved in the community. So while I am happy with those results, it is something that I would like to, to see those numbers increase in the future.
Angela, early on, I heard Troy switch over to Angie, and it's my understanding that you like being called Angie.
Angie, yes.
Angie, yes, right. Okay,
Yes.
so with your permission, I'll drop the full name and go to the Angie.
That's
as well.
yes, that's
Good.
wonderful. Even my mom calls me Angie, so that's great.
Good. So looking at the spread here of five members of a select board, were you asked during your campaign about your ability to work collaboratively with others? I recall early on one of the house parties that were thrown for you, one of the comments you made had to do with your ability to listen.
Mhm.
And I was struck by that, coming from a 32-year-old person who generally believes they know everything already, right? So have you had any more conversations with members of the community regarding a 20% stake in the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, so very early on, I did get some questions about that. And I spoke to me having my television show here on FCTV, The Conversation, where we talk and I listen. And, I talked quite a bit about all of the other committees that I either co-chair or chair, the programs that I've directed, and all of those things. In order to manage all of them require me to have an understanding of what needs to be done and to do my work, but to listen to what the people I'm working with or what the students that I'm supposed to be serving, what their needs are. So yes, I am very confident in my ability to listen and then to make decisions and to talk with people. The other interesting thing that came up quite a bit was my age. People were concerned that I was too young, or maybe not too young, but that I was young compared to, and was I going to be able to handle, everything that was going to be thrown at me? And to that, I say, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to wait until I'm older just to appease people to be older. I know that I still have a lot to learn, and I hope that throughout the rest of my life, I will always feel like I have a lot to learn. But I have a lot that I bring to the table now. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of skills, and I'm ready to use those, and I'm ready to serve the town, the people of Falmouth, with those.
It's great to hear that. And I remember answering those same questions. I was elected to what was then called the Board of Selectmen at the age of 24, and had to overcome that. But I must say, you're far more skilled and mature than I was at the age of 24, to be sure. Well, we've talked about what the important issues are. We do have some preliminary results. I know you do have a party with your supporters to get back to, and we want to let you get back to that, but want to give you the opportunity, Angie, just to share any thoughts before we let you go on tonight's early results of the campaign, or what it means to potentially be a member of the select board.
This is really exciting, the potential to be a member of the select board, not just because of how much I love Falmouth, but mostly because of how much I love Falmouth, but because of what I know I can bring to Falmouth. We are a wonderful place. We are a lovely place. We have a little bit of work to do, and I know that I'm willing to put in that work. I'm willing to listen to the people of Falmouth, of what they want, what they need, and to represent them. I talked a lot of my campaign about affordable housing, the opioid crisis, and these things, but one thing I really talked about and I really want to do is to reach the underserved groups and the underserved populations in our town, the ones who don't have the ability to come to select board meetings because they have second jobs or they have families, the ones who would love to volunteer but can't afford to do things without being paid, which is absolutely fair. Those are the groups that I really hope to bring their voices to the table in representing all of Falmouth. So campaigning has been fun, and although it will be different moving forward, I do really look forward to continuing talking to people and learning about what we need to do in our town.
Well, stay tuned to FCTV for those election results.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. Best of luck to you tonight, and we will certainly talk to you soon.
All right, thank you guys.
So again, with precinct 1, one of 9 precincts reporting in the results for the contested race on the ballot tonight for member of the select board, Angie Scott Price, 652 votes, and Michael Halen 150 votes. I should note at this point that FCTV did extend an invitation to Mr. Halen to either come on live with us tonight, as Angie just did, or have a pre-recorded interview, and he did decline that invitation. But all candidates are always welcomed on this election night show, and I think that's important to note. So Jay,
Absolutely.
there are 8 more precincts to report in, so the results are far from over.
Let's
However,
let's take a look back just for a moment to precinct 1. Talking about the precincts in the past, you've always emphasized that precinct 1, what the results there are a good indicator of what we can anticipate seeing across the community. 26% turnout, Troy. In your recollection, during your times, have you ever noticed where it hovers when we get maximum turnout out of precinct 1? What is
I have
26?
seen, and yeah, we could go and chat with Michael about this, but there have been times when there are hotly contested elections or in a presidential election that of course occurs in November, not May, but that precinct 1 has had turnout in greater than 70%. But I think 26% for a local election in precinct 1 is actually probably a little low. But I think what Michael was speculating was that he anticipates that the rest of the town would hover at somewhere between 11 and 15%. And so that's the difference. And, we've talked about this on this show now for many years, and there are some of us in the community that have been talking about it for decades. And, there are a couple of candidates who have been able to find the formula to be successful in getting elected to the select board without carrying precinct 1. And one of them is speaking right now. I think Brent Putnam was the other. But other than that, it's been very difficult historically to get elected without gaining support in precinct 1, and solving that issue and motivating people, in East Falmouth and Hatchville to actually go vote is an ongoing challenge. And so we'll see as the other results come in if Mike Halen was able to motivate voters to get out to the polls. But if not, then that margin in precinct 1 is going to be very difficult to overcome.
You think there might be some voter fatigue from the last elections to now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fatigue. I think it's people lead very busy lives. It's difficult to get people excited and motivated in local elections. We've obviously been through the last year and a half now, almost an extraordinary time. And the weather is just starting to get nice again. The COVID restrictions are starting to be relaxed. And I think some people just are enjoying the opportunity to be outside and to socialize again, and maybe didn't think to vote. I don't think that's the right approach. I take voting very, very in a very sacred way. And before I commuted to Brockton this morning, I made sure I stopped in and voted. And I think if more people did that and we could see turnouts, exceeding 30 or 40 or 50%, then who knows what the results would be. But unless and until the other parts of the community outside of Woods Hole and downtown and Simplewisset and to an extent North Falmouth, because precinct 5 also tends to have pretty high turnout, until the other areas of town are able to sort of band together and increase their numbers, it's not going to be easy or feasible even to be successful without getting the support from that part of town. I will say this, and I did offer commentary, opinion in my column about the candidacy of Angie Scott Price, and I think she has a wider appeal than just precinct 1. Because she is a young person and a professional COO of Miser Imaging in Woods Hole. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that she's a woman of color, and if elected, will be the first person of color to serve on that select board. And should she be successful, it will be the first time that there'll be a majority of women on the select board. So there's potentially some very groundbreaking issues with this candidacy. And for a young person of 32, as you mentioned, Jay, she's carried herself very well and very professionally. A credit to both her and Mr. Halen. The campaign, at least what I've seen of it, generally has been very upbeat and positive and professional. So it's a credit to both of them.
True, true. And when you speak of credit, there's no bad time to speak well of someone. Doug Jones did a fabulous job during his tenure, gave to the community a great deal, was very successful, led and chaired the BOS as well. I thought he did a very good job altogether. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here we are. And it's funny because it seems as though every May when we come on and do this show, and actually every November, because we do this show twice a year on election night, this issue emerges as the central issue because of the sort of the geographic separation of our community. And it's fascinating that we continue to talk about it, but it's because it's such a powerful and relevant issue when you're running for office. Somehow just getting folks, motivating folks to get out there and vote is a mystery that just has not yet been solved.
I want to share a little background information for our audience. As I was listening to you speak, I also noticed that you glanced away from the screen. I think our audience should know that at FCTV, since we're all volunteers and we all learn to work and play together, that we have folks in the control room feeding us information and on this Zoom platform that has a bit of a challenge to it for every time you do something a little bit different, and that we're getting information. This is not UFO stuff. This is real info.
That's right. Good point,
Anyway.
Jacob. When we're live, and we will be back in the FCTV studios for a future election when that's allowable. But I will tell you, when we're in the studio, right, we have the earpieces like they have, and we can hear people. But you're right, we do have to refer to the cell phones to get information, or from the control room to tell us somebody is waiting to come in. So it is interesting to do it in this hybrid way. But I will tell you, if they gave award for backgrounds, Jay, your bookcase has mine beat.
Well, it's a living library.
Yes, I like that. I do notice that we're just about to bring in a couple candidates for planning board, but as I'm looking forward, I think I might have mentioned this before, Jay. I think I might have to hand you a.
They're right behind me.
Okay, then I stand corrected. So, Out of the Woods, 365 Ways to be a Dung Beetle is in Jay Zavala's book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So on the ballot tonight, we did have a race for planning board, a couple of candidates, both of whom are now in the waiting room. So and with our continued election night coverage here on FCTV, it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Leary and Charlotte Harris, both candidates for the planning board. And we're happy to have you both here with us tonight. Bob and Charlotte, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing
Let
pretty
me
well.
change my name here. Okay.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, Charlotte.
And
Did we
Troy.
win?
Hi, you're both in. You made it. Good,
So,
good.
Only precinct 1 results are in right now thus far, but you're both doing exceedingly well. I will say, all these years later, I still struggle with calling Bob Leary Bob Leary. I just want to call him Mr. Leary, because Bob, in his much younger days, my much younger days, he's aged well. I'm not so sure about myself, but he was a teacher at Fountain when I attended there, when he was maybe 12 or 13 years old. So it's great to have you both, though, here, Charlotte and Bob. Thank you Let's just talk briefly about the ballot questions, because they had to do with strategic planning and the town's comprehensive plan, and how the planning board and the select board and the town administration all work together in furtherance of those goals. And so although it was the Charter Review Committee that put those forward, it really speaks to an important intersection of the planning board and the select board in trying to map a future for the community. So please, either or both of you, what are your thoughts on that and that process, and the planning, strategic planning process in general for our community?
Well, I think it's a very positive step, because the local comprehensive plan was written to be very general and very future looking, and not get into specific nitty gritty things. We have goals and policies that are overarching and a continuum in time. And then the action items are the things that can be changed. And I think if you are working on a strategic plan, it's a good place to start, because you have the goals and the policies and where we want to go as a town, as a guidepost for you.
Excellent. And Charlotte, your thoughts?
Go
Charlotte?
ahead. Something happened with the sound. I can't hear you.
You may not, you are bouncing in and out there, Charlotte. You may not have the best connection. So we can go on to the next issue, and if your connection improves, we can talk more about it. But obviously you've both served on the planning board, and you're both up for re-election unopposed. And so you will be able to serve another 3 years on the board. The planning board appears to work pretty well together, and you have had some challenging issues before you, but maintains a really good, solid working relationship. Bob, what do you attribute that to?
I think we have a deep respect for each other. You know, we all come from different backgrounds and different educations and different places. And I think just that basic respect that we have for each other. I mean, we can disagree. I mean, we've had some pretty good disagreements, but it never gets personal. We stick to the issues at hand, and that's the way it should be.
And I would add to that, Robert, what I observe when I tune in is that everyone comes prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see, and I think that's one of the building blocks to a sense of camaraderie, is that everyone comes ready for business.
Yeah, that's right, Jay. Homework is an important part of it. I think when you first get on a board, you don't realize how much time is spent outside of the actual time you're sitting at a meeting, because there is a lot of reading. There's going up to the planning office to look over plans, and going on site visits and things like that. And then we're forever getting links to different websites to look at different things and to look at policies from other towns and how other towns might have addressed a certain bylaw or a certain issue. So it's a constant education.
Right. Yes.
Charlotte, we want to give you a chance to weigh in here if your connection has improved.
I don't know whether I'm or not, and you can hear me, but I
Yes,
would like
we
to
can hear you.
comment what a great team we have now on the board. So I'm so glad that we continue for another while. I think another reason we have worked well together. Planning board's goals are very clear. You're here to maintain the character of the town and to develop following the comprehensive plan that we know and have worked on. We have very good staff. We have very good support of the selectmen. At least for the years that I've served, the Board of Selectmen making a real effort to coordinate with us, include us. So that's very, very helpful. And I think the other reason is we're all particularly interested in the 3 big projects in front of the planning board. One is the recodification, which is nearly completed, so it will be here to everybody to use. The second one is we all understand townwide that multifamily housing is our biggest need. We all work for it, and we've been trying to, And we are just about to bring before them a bylaw to that we're all pretty enthusiastic about and have been working on very hard. Then the thing is the Davis Strait reset. These are long-term projects. The projects that the plan has all kinds of support from COD Commission, from town people who participate in the planning, to the public hearings, and these give us.
I think we have a little case of frozen Charlotte there, but
Yeah.
It
Good.
ended with gave us. When she comes back, if she can pick up at that point.
Mhm.
yeah, but I think there were a couple of, so the highlighting those three major issues I think are really important, particularly the work, Bob, that the planning board is doing on trying to create the ability to develop some multifamily housing, which actually relates directly to something we were talking about, Audrey Scott Price, because more dense housing gives more people, workers in Falmouth, the ability to be able to live here. And that really, it goes hand in hand with the creating some sort of master plan for Davis Straits, because at least the discussions that I've seen anticipate some mixed use where you could have both residential and commercial. So can you give us a brief preview of what we might expect to see in the coming weeks and months on those issues?
Well, we're still working on the multifamily housing bylaw, and oh, Charlotte, are you back? Because Charlotte's been on that subcommittee that's been working on that. Can you speak to that, Charlotte?
Yeah, could I want to. The calling it, it's about multifamily housing, but we're calling it resident and commercial overlay district. It sounds kind of funny when it comes before town, but what that means is if you picture down Main Street, there are apartments over Main Street. There's all kinds of housing there, and there could be more. And if we do them correctly in our business districts, then we have mixed residential and housings, just a density used achieved in cities, so that we have professional offices, commercial office, restaurants on the first floor, and condo or apartments of, and a much more livable, wild kind of a city in the business. If you put it in the right place, people will like it. And so when you hear residential and commercial, think multifamily, because that's what it's for.
Well, just today I had a conversation with one of the guys at Wood Lumber, and he was asking me about housing because he's got a son who's single, who's been working there for 14 years, and he's getting priced out of the rental market. And you know, what do single people like that do? And with housing that is developed with commercial space below it, you can make apartments smaller. He's somebody who doesn't need 1,200 square feet of living space. 300, 400 square foot apartments you can put people in. You don't need a lot of space. And if you're downtown, you can walk to a lot of amenities. People talk about traffic and things like that, but I lived on Walker Street when I first came to town, and I walked everywhere. And where I didn't walk, I biked. So it was a great place to be so close to downtown. You didn't have to go to the grocery store and fill up your car. You could go, you know, once or twice a week and have enough in one bag to carry home with you. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the downtown villages more walkable and more bikeable, so that people don't need to drive everywhere.
And that theory of mixed use, dense mixed use residential that really takes advantage of going up rather than sprawling out is used successfully, not just in cities, but in towns throughout the Commonwealth. And so I think for those who may be skeptical of what they're hearing, it really, it's a model that has been successfully used in many communities. And and is really being encouraged by the Commonwealth. We do, our next guest is a candidate for the Housing Authority, but one final question for both of you, since we have you here. And by the way, let Jay and I congratulate you both. You heard it here first on FCTV for your successful reelection to the planning board. But the legislature, Jay, just passed, I think it was the House, but you guys can correct me, maybe it still needs to go in the Senate, but the housing choice law that seeks to change the local threshold for zoning changes that would allow these kinds of changes here in Falmouth from a 2/3 down to a majority. Do either of you have an opinion on that? And is that something that you're taking into account as you deliberate?
I can say that if my holds up, yes, we have to take it into account. Working on the bylaw, the mixed resident commercial bylaw, the new law that was passed is a tremendous assistance. It means that we need only a 50.
We lost her again.
Right, she was just about to say, right, that as I had said, just a 50% of majority rather than 2/3. Yeah.
We have written the bylaw so that it's with town council, other people's help, so it accords with that law. The date that we're proposing is 20 units, up to 20 units. Have to be 20, it could be. The reason we've chosen some for it, it's 3, the Housing Assistance Corporation, a seminar for town planners and interested in affordable housing. And what they were saying is if you housing to be built, developers have to be able to be on it, or they're just.
Well, if I could just jump in, one of the benefits of keeping your density into the villages is you preserve your open space and you consolidate your infrastructure. If you continue with sprawl, all you're doing is adding more to the road system, the water system. All that is expensive. And if it's already there in the village centers, you take advantage of that.
Excellent. Well, we thank you both for your leadership on these important issues, and thank you for your continued service to the community for another 3 years as members of the planning board. So congratulations to you both, and we really appreciate your service to the town.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve.
It is. It is indeed. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good night.
So there is another, as I look at my ballot here, that is on the town website. We do have, and you know what, I'll just show it real quick before we bring in our next guest. So for anyone that has not seen it, here is the ballot that we're voting on tonight. I called up precinct 6 because it's the precinct where I now live. But so there were several races on the ballot, as you can see, Jay. David Vieira ran unopposed again to serve as our moderator. We already talked to Audrey Scott Price, one of the 2 candidates for select board, along with Michael Halen.
Troy, before you go on, I've heard you refer to Angie a number of times now as Scott Price. Since I didn't find any hyphenation between the 2 names, does she use Scott Price or just Price?
I believe so, yes.
Scott Price, okay.
Yeah, I was actually first introduced to her here on FCTV. She and the Reverend Will Mebane from St. Barnabas Church have a regular show on FCTV called The Conversation, where they talk about important issues related to race. And so all of my interactions with her, she has used that name. So going just back to the ballot to introduce folks that are watching from home to the issues that we're discussing tonight. 3 candidates for 3 seats on the library trustees, 3 candidates for 3 terms, for 3 seats, excuse me, on the school committee, That first candidate, William James Dorkner, will be a new member of the school committee, and returning to the school committee will be its current chair, Kelly Welch, and Natalie Canelopoulos. We just spoke to the two returning members of the planning board, and now we will have the opportunity to talk to the one and the successful candidate for the Falmouth Housing Authority, Mike Galasso. So we're happy to have Michael on the phone with us tonight. Michael, welcome. And again, let us be the first to congratulate you on a successful election to the Housing Authority. I'm sure it was a grueling campaign, but you came out on top.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you. It's very nice to see you, Jay. You too.
Good to
And
see you.
yeah.
Good to see you, Michael.
It was a tough campaign. I kissed a lot of babies, shook a lot of hands, did a lot of walking, but no, it has your other guests were saying it's a privilege to serve. And you know, I've been on the Falmouth EDIC for a number of years. I've spent my life building affordable housing in the communities I've worked in. And as we've talked this evening, you know, we do have a crisis here in Falmouth regarding housing. And I think it's time that we really turn our attention, our financial resources to help solve that issue. We're very lucky to have someone like Sanjay to be our new selectman. I've worked with her on the working group that's been coming up with some new sources for affordable housing. She's a very bright person. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of her career here. So I know all the results aren't in, but I'd like to congratulate her and everyone else who ran and participates in our local government. You know, I ran for this position because you know, the Falmouth Housing Authority is one of the largest landowners and property owners and apartment owners in town, and their inventory is rather old and aging, and I think there's a great opportunity to expand additional housing in our community by being on their board. So besides helping to renovate the existing ones, the existing units that are there, make them more energy efficient, serve the current clientele, I think there's an opportunity that we can look at to add some additional units. So it's a great opportunity. I appreciate everyone who voted for me. I don't know what the numbers are yet, but I'm looking forward to serve on the Housing Authority. And Jay, as you know, because you served with me on the EDIC, we were able to do some great things there, working together with very little money, because we knew where to go to find some money in order to renovate the bus station, which we did with no money of our own. We were able to get money from Mass DOT, and building the solar out at the landfill where we worked with Joe Kennedy and private financing in order to build that solar field out there. That you know, that landfill was costing the town over $100,000 a year. It now produces over $700,000 a year in savings in electricity with no investment from the town. So those are the type of things I think I can bring to the Housing Authority, is creative ways to generate some funds that are needed to renovate the buildings, to build new buildings. There's going to be a lot of money available in the coming years for housing. So I think it's time for us to turn our attentions to help solving that problem, because as we've talked about tonight, you know, we're trying to hire new firemen in town. It's very difficult to recruit people if they can't afford to live here. So we need to really spend our time and energies to address that issue. And it's good to hear the planning board members talk about coming up with multifamily zoning, which we don't have in our community, in order for us to build more density. So I appreciate you guys having me on this evening, and I'm really looking forward to serving.
So Michael, I can certainly attest to your tenacity, looking back on some of the projects that you led the EDIC through. When I speak of the tenacity, what comes to mind immediately is the bus station, and how you worked so hard to make sure we got the attention of the appropriate state officials, and then once you had corralled them, to keep them focused on the projects that we had and the timeline that we wanted. So that, and the collaborative way that you've worked with not only the other members of the EDIC, but also those others that came before the EDIC, with ideas, suggestions, hopes, prayers, plans. Yeah, I'm glad you're stepping up again.
Well,
Very much so.
thanks, Jan. You're right. It is a collaborative effort. I appreciate that, but it's really the team efforts that we put together to tackle these problems. And when we first looked at the bus station, our train station, our historic train station, Jim Toe, brought that to our attention along with Paul Dreyer, and it was a mess. It was a mess, and we weren't getting the attention of Mass DOT. And Jim Fox and myself and some of the other board members, we went up to Boston because they wouldn't meet with us. And we said, well, we're just going to go to their office. Let's just go knock on their door. But that's how you have to get things done sometimes.
Sometimes, that's true.
It takes that effort. And, affordable housing is a tough industry. It's what I've been in my whole life. And people often ask me how I got started in this. And I'll tell you, it was my aunt who owned the Falmouth Diner back in the 60s and 70s. And she wouldn't refuse service to anyone who came in there. She took care of anyone who walked through those doors. If you didn't have a job you couldn't pay, she put them to work cleaning, doing the dishes and stuff. And that type of service to people who needed help was, because I started working for her when I was too young, but she taught me a lot, and I saw a lot from working there. It's now Betsy's Diner, but it was Falmouth Diner back in the day and stuff. And my aunt Tilly ran that.
Sure, of course, yes.
Yeah, ran all the concession stands at the beaches for a number of years. She was a very hard worker, but she took care of people in the community. And that's what I've done in my professional career.
Well, that's a lovely tribute.
Yeah, she was a great person. She meant a lot. Yeah.
So, Michael, thank you. And I share Jay's praise for you and your tenacity, for both of you, actually, and the success that you really shepherded through at the renovation of that bus station. I don't think I ever could have dreamed of having a pulled ham and cheese sandwich at the station grill. But you guys saw that vision and carried it through. And there's nothing like riding your bike 10 miles down the bike path and then treating yourself with one of their delicious sandwiches. So great work. Michael, you're welcome to stay on with us, but I think pretty soon we're going to be able to have Michael Palmer back on with us. And because we do have some unofficial, but some final results. So if you'd like to stay on with us, you're more than welcome. And then you can join us in talking about it. Do we have Michael? I see another Michael on there. Do we have Michael Palmer ready to come back on? If not, we can continue to chat here. Okay, I'm being told Michael is not quite ready to come on, but I'm actually texting with him right now.
So going back to Michael and the EDIC, just a carry on, not only was it an excellent project in terms of the transformation of the station to something that the Falmouth residents could take pride in, but it ended with the selection of an absolutely fine contractor that runs that cafe.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to John. I understand the EDIC is going to be reviewing that effort over the next couple of days or in the near future. And I certainly would give the current leaseholder a thumbs up. He's done an excellent job.
Yeah.
He and his wife.
Yep. They both have. They took a chance when they came in there and built up a business. So of course they're going to have an opportunity to continue on and expand. And also, we are just starting a master plan for the area around the station, because not only do we have the station property itself, but we have the woods like behind the Elks Club. We've got about 2 acres of land there. And so we've recently got a grant in order to do a master plan for the area around the station. We're going to involve the whole community in discussions about what we want to see there. It could be a place for additional affordable housing. I'm not so sure that we want much more parking, even though we do need parking downtown, but we think that the Steamship Authority sort of has a monopoly on parking, and I don't think we need to add to that. So, those are some future plans for the station, which could possibly include some affordable housing too. So there's still a lot to do there. Yeah.
So I would like to announce some unofficial results. Michael Palmer, the clerk, will come back, but he has, with his assistance and with the assistance of some of the other FCTV staff, I can announce some unofficial results. So it looks as though right now, unofficially, the total votes for the select board, Angie Scott Price, 2,689. And Michael Halen, 1,265. So it looks as though with these early results, the numbers we saw in precinct 1 really carried through, where Angela Scott Price garnering more than double the amount of votes of Michael Halen.
So that total that you just announced, Troy, is that all of the remaining precincts?
I don't know, because we're gathering these results from a variety of sources. I do believe those are all 9 precincts, but until we have Town Clerk Michael Palmer back on to confirm, we won't know for sure. But most certainly, those numbers, the numbers in precinct 1 were just over 600 for Ms. Scott Price, and just over 100 for Mr. Halen. So this is clearly at least a majority of, if not all of the town. Those numbers are overwhelming. So even if there are a precinct or 2 left, that's a mountain that Mike Halen just cannot climb. So, I think we can unofficially announce Angie Scott Price as the winner of the contested race for the select board here on FCTV. And
you heard it here at 8:59.
What's interesting, though, is, and we'll have to look at the precinct breakdown, Jay, as we always do. But at least with these numbers, it does not appear to be the sort of geographic conflict that we've seen in the past. That's a pretty wide and resounding victory for Audrey Scott Price. And so, as close to a mandate as you can get, if not a clear mandate for support for that candidacy.
Mhm.
So my hope, I think everyone's hope, is that the trajectory for affordable housing appears to be locked in. We know that the planning board is working in that direction. We know that the local comprehensive plan is aimed in that direction. We now have Michael Galasso on the Affordable Housing Committee. And so everything seems to go in the right direction. We'll get the housing that we desperately need.
There's no question, that clearly that affordable workforce housing is emerging as the top, if not one of the top 2 or 3 issues in our community right now. And Michael, with the work that you've done in your career, but also in your volunteer work, now transitioning to the Housing Authority, it couldn't come at a better time, because, as one of the pillars of affordable housing in Falmouth, the Housing Authority, along with the Falmouth Housing Corporation and the Falmouth Housing Trust and the Affordable Housing Committee, there really, really is a whole lot of momentum behind creating more housing so that people who work here can afford to live here.
So Michael, you're not planning on leaving the EDIC, are you?
No, I'll still stay on the EDIC. But I do want to say that the key, and Andre mentioned that working group program that we've come up with, is going to be when we go to town meeting, hopefully this fall, to allocate more funds to that cause. That's really going to be the key. We've got to make sure that our folks at town meeting understand what we're trying to achieve, because we can't do it without the funding sources. And though the Community Preservation Committee has been very much involved in funding affordable housing, I've been the recipient of some of those funds for the projects I've done on Shore Street in North Falmouth. There's much more to be done. So we're going to really need town meeting support when that plan comes before them this November.
Very good. Very good. Roy?
Well, I think that that's really good news, and that's important news, because in order for this problem to be solved, in order for us to make incremental progress on an issue like this, it's really going to take the resources of the Housing Authority and the Housing Corporation and the Housing Trust and the Affordable Housing Committee. You know, when some people look at that alphabet soup of housing agencies and think it's too much, but you know, as somebody, I actually sit on the board of the Falmouth Housing Trust, and everybody really has a little niche and takes care of a different piece of that puzzle. And it's really necessary to have all of that energy and all of those efforts, because the problem is so huge and so overwhelming. And we've seen, you know, one of the impacts of the pandemic has been skyrocketing real estate prices here in Falmouth. And if you own property, that's great. If you're looking to get into the housing market, as Bob Leary talked about, a young man who's worked at Wood Lumber for 14 years and has a son who just wants to stay here, you know, and be part of the community, but is being priced out of the rental market. It is a critical issue. Michael, one of the things that Jay and I talked about with Angie while she was on with us is what I see every morning when I travel to Brockton for work. There's a traffic jam coming over the bridge every day, year round, even in February. And I don't see that as a traffic or infrastructure issue. I see that as an affordable housing issue, because the people who come here to work live off Cape because they can't afford to live here. So the work that you are embarking on now is important, and we thank you for it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we forget all those people who come and work here during the summer. You know, when we go through the drive lane at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or McDonald's or any of our hotels and restaurants, you know, some of those people, I'm not so sure a lot of people know this, you know, they live in motel rooms in shifts, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 people to a room that live in shifts. They're riding bicycles. Our economy wouldn't survive if we didn't have those folks here. And I think we need to do more to treat them a little bit better than what we do right now. And I've talked to Mike Kasparian about this in the past, and we've talked about doing some things for them, but they're crucial to the survival of our business here in the summer. I mean, we know as we drive around town how many help wanted signs we see. You know, we just don't have the people here to fill those positions. And Troy, yeah, I see that traffic coming over the bridge every morning, the pickup trucks that are coming over the bridge for people to come here and work, because they can't afford to live in Falmouth. They've got to go over the bridge. They live in Warrenborn, New Bedford, Fall River. And, you know, economically and environmentally, that's not a good thing for us. So I hope that, you know, we really knuckle down. We've done a great job preserving open space in this community, you know, 900 acres or so. We spent $30 million acquiring that property. We now need to turn our attention to solving this other problem that we have.
Agreed. Agreed.
Absolutely. So let's just talk for a minute about those preliminary results. And again, Michael, we're happy to have you stay on here and join us for the conversation. So as Jay, you and I mentioned before, we had the unofficial results. Angie Scott Price will be the first person of color to ever serve on the Falmouth Select Board. And along with her colleagues, Nancy Taylor and Megan English Braga, it will be, I believe, the first time in the town's history where a majority of the select board will be women. And so this is an important and historic night for Falmouth, really breaking a couple of those barriers. And I think that's important. And I wrote about it for that reason, because I think it's important that we talk about these issues and recognize the importance of having different perspectives at the table and different lived experiences. Because if we don't hear how other people have experienced the same community that we live in, then we're never going to make necessary change. And so I really think that we can't overstate the importance of what happened tonight.
Well, it speaks volumes about the character of the community we live in, that people will vote for a candidate without focusing or making monumental issues out of gender or ethnicity, that The community has looked at the candidates, looked at their qualifications, looked at their goals and ambitions, and have selected. Do we need more recreation centers and sports areas? Yes, of course we do. We're that kind of a community. And of course, we will do that for the children of our town. At the same time, there are critical infrastructure elements that must be addressed, that have been on on the local comprehensive plan for years and have just been kicked down the road. So my hat off not only to the candidates willing to serve, but to the electorate that made certain that they voted.
Yeah, it's nice to have more diversity in our local government. You know, I have said often, and our board has looked at the board of the EDIC, we all look the same. You know, we're guys in our 50s and 60s.
Not when I was there.
Yes, you were part of us, absolutely. And yeah, we just need to get more diversity. I mean, I grew up here in Falmouth. I went to Mullen Hall, Lawrence Intermediate School, went to all the schools here, played with a lot of folks of color and sports and everything. I'm not sure where they all went, but it'd be great to have more of them involved in our community. And we need to get the youth involved more too. We need to get the kids taking civics classes. We need to get them to come to town meeting. We need to get our youth more involved, and we need to be more diverse in what we currently are. I think that would be a big step for our community. And I think tonight, as you said, is a good first step in that direction, but it needs to go further than that. I think we need to have more diversity on every one of our committees that we have. And if we have to recruit, we have to recruit. I have said many times, I will give up my seat on the EDIC if a person of color would come in, hopefully a woman, and say, I'd love to be on the EDIC, because I think it's that important of an issue.
Excellent. And you know what? And thank you for being willing, Michael, to make that sacrifice. But you're so right. And hopefully this is that tonight opens a door for young men and women in this community, but particularly
Absolutely.
young men and women of color, to know that that they are welcome at the table, and that Falmouth wants to be a community where everyone feels welcome and everyone feels part of the process. And that not just for the select board, but for town meeting and for you know, you're right, Michael, volunteering on committees. And there are literally dozens of opportunities for people of all ages to volunteer and give their time. That's how this government works. It works through its volunteers. And so hopefully tonight is, like I said, opening a door
Yep.
to see a future that more reflects the community that we all serve.
Well, I can tell you that on a personal level, I've lived in Falmouth 20 years now, and I remember very vividly moving here and immediately being asked by your mentor, Eddie Marks, he met me with the comment, if you're going to live here, get involved.
Mhm.
Didn't ask me where I came from, didn't ask me what I was made of. Said, if you're going to live here, get involved. And that stayed with me. And of course, the town has been very open and welcoming. How much of this do you want? So my experience, I think, is valid. As a man of color, I recognize myself. I know who I am. And at the same time, I know the community that I live in. And this is where I want to be.
That's I remember you telling me that story, Jay. And of course, you're right. Eddie was a dear friend. He was like family. I had one of the great honors of my life was to say the eulogy at his funeral. And he that's the way he talked. And and it didn't matter who you were. He wanted people to get involved. And it you know, with the loss of Virginia Valiela this week, you know, with those folks who really shaped. So think about it this way: Falmouth went from part-time selectman to full-time, from full-time selectman to a part-time board of selectmen and a town administrator. Not that long ago. It was 1991. So it was 30 years ago. but we have a 300 and some odd year history. So for most of our history, we were governed one way, and then not too long ago, that we completely changed the way we were governed, and Virginia was part of that, and Eddie was part of that early on, and then I just a few years later in 1994 got on the board, and so that generation of leaders really shaped in many ways who we are today, and so it's important, I think, that we have these conversations and remember those folks, and talk about their service, not only so that their memories live on, but so that young people understand the importance of service. You mentioned it a few minutes ago, Michael, of civics and understanding how government works, and then giving back. There's an old Native American saying, and I know, Jay, you have some Native American heritage. There's an old Native American saying that they say that people die twice. They die once when they take their last breath, and again when their name is uttered for the last time. So I have taken it upon myself to be one of our informal storytellers in town, and to talk about the lives of people like Virginia Valiela and Nate Ellis and John Elliott and Eddie Marks and George DeMello, those people that we saw in the picture at the beginning of this show, who are no longer with us, but whose legacies live on and have shaped all of our lives because of the decisions they made and the hours that they sat at the table and volunteering. And now with a new generation, including young people like Audrey Scott Price and Megan English Braga, who are shaping this community for the next generation of people and setting that example.
Correct. Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, I hope that we can get civics back into the high school and even in the junior high school, and get those kids more involved in our government and how the government runs, and things just don't happen. The process that's involved to make things happen and the dedication that it takes to do that. So,
there's a program at the state level, Troy, you must be familiar with this, and possibly you too, Michael. There was through the Senate, the state Senate ran a program for what was it called? It was all about state government. And I had the privilege of attending it at the invitation of our then senator, the president of the Senate, Therese Murray. And it was a citizens legislative seminar. That was the name of it. And it gave me an opportunity early in my residency here to learn about how my new state is governed and how it moves and acts. And I'm very glad to say that I'm still in touch with other participants of that event back in the early 200s. And it actually gave me the architecture of our state government and how it flows between the municipalities, the villages, the municipalities, the counties, and the state. And you're right, we need more of that in our education system.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a class at the high school take the town meeting warrant and come up with their recommendations of what should be done in each one of those articles, and have them come and produce a little booklet that says, here's what the civics class of the high school recommends, because I think that starts to get them involved. It's great that we have them there and hand out the microphones and everything, but I'd like to see them take a little bit more of an active role and actually come up with what they think the recommendations should be for some of those articles that we vote on.
Well, it's funny, they used to do that, Michael. They used to have a town meeting at the high school as a way to learn civics. And our current moderator, David Vieira, was the moderator for the mock town meeting at Falmouth High. So I don't know if they do that anymore, but it was back then a great opportunity to start to learn about how the government works. So we are going to get ready to wrap things up here. Town Clerk Michael Palmer has let us know that he's still in the weeds counting the results. Of course, in addition to the one contested race for the Board of Selectmen, there are 9 precincts that are counting town meeting ballots. So that's going to take a little bit. And so we will wrap up our live coverage here in just a minute here tonight. We'll allow Jay and our guest, Michael Galasso, to have some final words, but we're really very, very grateful to have this platform to bring live election results to you tonight. And once again, unofficial results for the one contested race for the Board of Selectmen. We have newly elected Angie Scott Price with 2,689 votes, and Michael Halen with 1,265 votes. So we would like to congratulate both candidates for getting out there, putting their names out there, offering of themselves. As we know, Mike Halen has been a candidate a couple of times for a few different races, continues to volunteer in many ways and offers a lot to the community. And so we really appreciate his sacrifice and his willingness to give back. But tonight, Angie Scott Price is the victor and will join the select board. So Michael and Jay, any closing thoughts?
Michael, I'll defer to you first, and then I'll have my say.
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me on tonight. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun being with you, talking about things happening in our community, and everyone at FCTV, Deb, Bob, Jeff, everyone there. They do a great job. And so I just really appreciate you having me on tonight and giving me an opportunity to say a few things. So thank you. Jay, great seeing you. Troy, too.
Thank you.
Take
And
care, Michael.
congratulations on a hard-fought victory.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I wanted to add to your closing remarks, Troy, is a couple of things. First, I want to remind our listeners that tomorrow night there will be the hearing from the Cable Advisory Committee on the renewal, possible renewal of the cable TV franchise with Comcast. And we've asked the public to turn out to join us in this Zoom style meeting and express their views and thoughts about the importance of FCTV to our community, as well as their views on the service that they've received in the past from Comcast. Having said that, my closing remarks go beyond Angie and her success, because now it's time to go to work. But it's also time for those other elected officials, the planning board, the school committee, and so forth, and all of the town meeting members in the 9 precincts that have either run again or for the first time have thrown their name into the ring. So I want to applaud them for their willingness to serve as well. We live in a community where public service and civic engagement is the bright shining star, if you will, of a town that's got it all together. I'm proud to be living in Falmouth. Troy?
What a great way to end, Jay. And I'm proud, as always, to be alongside you, my good friend, and bring these election results live to the people of Falmouth. So this says, once again, we will be back the next election to give you live results. It's been a pleasure to be with you for the last hour, and really a pleasure to, congratulations to all the candidates, those that put themselves out there. We were happy to have them on here to talk about their service to the community. So we will see you again on the next election day. For my good friend Jay Zavala, I am Falmouth Enterprise columnist Troy Clarkson. This is live FCTV election night coverage. Thank you and have a great night.